Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry.
When Red Skelton stepped off the television stage for his final regular performance in March 1971, he closed a chapter few entertainers could equal. For 2 decades, his wholesome comedy, iconic characters like Freddie the Freeloader and Clem Kadiddlehopper, and his unmistakable warmth made him a national treasure. Yet the end of his show, his work afterward, and rumors of a mysterious unaired special reveal a deeper story shaped by changing times, network politics, and one man's refusal to compromise his values. What really happened in Red Skelton's final years? Join us as we uncover the truth. Why Red Skelton's show was canceled. Despite success, in the spring of 1971, CBS made a decision that shocked the entertainment industry and devastated millions of loyal viewers. The network canceled The Red Skelton Show despite it remaining one of the highest-rated programs on television. This wasn't a situation where a show had run its course and audiences had moved on. Red Skelton was still pulling in massive viewership numbers, still generating strong advertising revenue, and still delivering the same quality comedy that had made him a household name since 1951. The cancellation did not make sense from a business perspective, and it certainly didn't make sense from an entertainment perspective. So why did CBS pull the plug on one of its most successful shows? The answer lies in a dramatic transition that was happening across American television during the late 1960s and early 1970s. Network executives, particularly at CBS, had decided they needed to appeal to younger, urban audiences, which advertisers considered more valuable than the older, rural viewers who made up a significant portion of Red Skelton's fan base. This strategy became known as the Rural Purge, and it led to the cancellation of numerous popular shows deemed too old-fashioned or too appealing to demographics Madison Avenue wasn't interested in reaching. The Rural Purge claimed many victims beyond Red Skelton. Shows like The Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, Hee Haw, and The Jim Neighbors Hour were all canceled during this period despite solid ratings. The reasoning was cold and purely business-oriented. Advertisers wanted to reach viewers aged 18 to 49 who lived in urban areas and had disposable income to spend on consumer goods. Older viewers and rural audiences didn't fit this demographic profile, so shows that appealed primarily to those groups were expendable regardless of how many people actually watched them. Red Skelton was furious about the cancellation. He had given CBS 20 years of his life, 20 years of consistently high ratings and quality programming, and they were throwing him aside because advertisers wanted a different demographic. In interviews after the cancellation, Red didn't hide his bitterness. He pointed out that his show was still successful by any reasonable measure, that millions of people still loved his comedy and wanted to see more of it, and that CBS was making a mistake by prioritizing demographic data over actual viewership numbers and viewer loyalty. What made the situation even more painful for Red was that he understood the broader implications of what was happening. The cancellation of his show wasn't just about business decisions or demographic targeting. It represented a fundamental change in what American television valued. The wholesome, family-friendly comedy that Red had built his career on was being replaced by edgier, more socially relevant programming that reflected the cultural upheaval of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Shows like All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and MASH were the new model for success. They dealt with controversial topics, featured flawed characters, and reflected the complexities of modern life in ways that Red's gentle comedy never attempted. Red was 58 years old when his show was canceled. He was at an age when many performers would consider retirement, especially after achieving the level of success he had. But Red wasn't ready to stop performing. Comedy wasn't just his career. It was his identity, his purpose, his way of connecting with audiences and bringing joy to people's lives. The cancellation of his television show didn't end his desire to perform. It just meant he would have to find other venues and other ways to reach the audiences who still wanted to see him. After 2 decades as one of television's biggest stars, Red Skelton suddenly found himself without the platform that had made him a household name. But would this force him into retirement, or would he find new ways to bring his comedy to the millions who still loved him? Refusing to fade away. The cancellation of the Red Skelton Show in 1971 could have been the end of Red Skelton's career in entertainment. Many performers in similar situations would have retired, perhaps making occasional guest appearances, but essentially accepting that their time in the spotlight had passed. Red Skelton refused to accept this fate. Instead of fading quietly into retirement, he embarked on what would become more than 2 decades of continued performing, proving that his connection with audiences didn't depend on having a weekly television show. Red turned his attention to live performances, an area where he had always excelled and where television ratings and demographic data didn't matter. He began touring extensively, performing at theaters, concert halls, and special events across the country. These live shows allowed him to connect directly with audiences in a way that television never quite captured. There was no network executive between him and the people who came to see him. There were no advertisers dictating content or worrying about demographics. It was just Red Skelton on stage, doing what he had been doing since his vaudeville days decades earlier, making people laugh. The live performances were tremendously successful. Red discovered that while television networks might no longer want him, actual audiences still loved him. His shows sold out regularly. People of all ages came to see him perform, not just the older rural viewers that CBS had decided weren't valuable. Children who had grown up watching him on television brought their own children to see him perform live. The comedy that television executives considered outdated was still connecting with real people in real venues, proving that the executives had perhaps misjudged what audiences actually wanted. Red also maintained a presence in the entertainment industry through other channels. He made guest appearances on variety shows and talk shows, where he was always welcomed as a legendary figure whose contributions to comedy were beyond dispute. He performed at charity events and fundraisers, using his talents to support causes he believed in. And he continued developing new material and refining his classic characters, refusing to simply coast on past successes or become a nostalgia act, performing the same routines over and over. In the 1980s, Red found a new television home on HBO, the cable network that was beginning to change how Americans consume television content. HBO wasn't bound by the same advertising considerations that had led to his cancellation at CBS. They could create programming for specific audiences without worrying about whether those audiences fit the demographic profile that traditional advertisers demanded. For HBO, Red Skelton represented quality entertainment with a built-in audience, exactly the kind of programming that could help establish the network as a destination for premium content. Red created several specials for HBO during this period. One of the most notable was Freddie the Freeloader's Christmas Dinner in 1981, which featured his beloved hobo character in a heartwarming Christmas story. The special showcased Red's pantomime skills and his ability to create emotional moments without relying on dialogue. It reminded audiences why they had fallen in love with his comedy in the first place. The special was well received and demonstrated that Red's talent hadn't diminished, even though network television had decided he was no longer relevant. Another significant moment in Red's post-CBS career came in 1983, when he performed at London's Royal Albert Hall as part of a Royal Command performance celebrating his 70th birthday. This was a tremendous honor, performing for British royalty at one of the world's most prestigious venues. The performance was recorded and later aired on HBO in 1984 as The Red Skelton Show, a royal performance. The special gave American audiences a chance to see Red performing at the peak of his powers, proving that age and the passage of time hadn't diminished his abilities as a performer. Throughout that period, Red continued performing regularly, though the frequency of his performances began to decrease as he entered his 70s. He had developed a routine of extended tours, followed by periods of rest at his home. The physical demands of live performance were considerable, requiring energy, stamina, and the ability to connect with audiences night after night. But Red loved performing so much that he was willing to endure these demands well into his 70s, long past the age when most performers would have retired. As Red continued performing into his 70s, audiences wondered how long he could maintain his grueling schedule. But what really happened during his final years of performing? And is there any truth to the rumors of a mysterious final television special that never aired? The final performances and the truth about the unaired special. As Red Skelton entered his 80s in the early 1990s, he began to slow down considerably. The touring schedule that had kept him busy throughout the 1970s and 1980s became less frequent. His performances, while still high quality when they occurred, were limited by his age and declining health. But Red remained determined to perform as long as he was physically able, believing that making people laugh was his calling and his purpose in life. In 1993, Red celebrated his 80th birthday. This milestone was marked by various tributes and celebrations acknowledging his 6 decades in show business and his contributions to American comedy. For many performers, an 80-year birthday would signal the definitive end of their career. But Red continued to make occasional appearances and performances even at this advanced age. He was no longer touring extensively or maintaining a regular performance schedule, but he hadn't officially retired. He simply performed when opportunities arose and when he felt physically able to do so. This is where the confusion and misinformation about Red's final television special begins. Over the years, various YouTube videos have claimed that Red Skelton filmed a final television special that was never aired, suggesting some kind of mystery or controversy about why the special was suppressed. These claims typically imply that the special has only recently been discovered or made available to the public, creating the impression of some long-lost treasure that's finally seeing the light of day. The reality is far less dramatic. There was no mysterious final television special that was filmed and then hidden away for decades. What these claims typically refer to is Red's 1984 HBO special, The Red Skelton Show, a royal performance, which documented his performance at London's Royal Albert Hall in 1983. This special aired normally on HBO and was later released on home video. There was never anything secret or suppressed about it. The confusion seems to stem from the fact that this was indeed one of Red's final major recorded television performances. And for audiences discovering it years or decades later, it might feel like a lost special, even though it was widely available when it was first broadcast. Another source of confusion might be various recordings of Red's live performances from the late 80s and early 90s that were filmed by local television stations or by audience members with video cameras. As these recordings have been digitized and uploaded to platforms like YouTube in recent years, they've been marketed as rare or previously unseen footage. While it's true that these recordings might not have been widely distributed at the time they were made, they weren't suppressed or hidden. They were simply local recordings that didn't receive national distribution until the internet made it possible to share such content globally. The truth is that Red Skelton's final years of performing were well documented, but not particularly dramatic in the way that headlines suggest. He gradually reduced his performance schedule, as his health and energy declined. He continued making audiences laugh when he could. He remained beloved by fans who had followed his career for decades. And eventually, as happens to all performers, his ability to perform ended not because of network decisions or suppressed specials, but because of the natural limitations of age and health. Red's last public performances occurred in 1993, his 80th birthday year. After that point, his health declined to the point where performing was no longer feasible. He spent his final years largely out of the public eye, enjoying his privacy and his family. He died on September 17, 1997, at the age of 84 from pneumonia. His death was widely covered in the media, with numerous tributes acknowledging his impact on American comedy and entertainment. There were no deathbed revelations about suppressed specials or hidden performances. There was simply the passing of a comedy legend who had entertained millions of people over 6 decades. While the rumors of a lost final special turned out to be exaggerated, Red Skelton's real legacy is far more substantial and meaningful than any single performance could ever be. What did this comedy pioneer actually leave behind? And why does his work still matter decades after his death? Why Red Skelton still matters. Red Skelton's impact on American comedy and entertainment extends far beyond the 20 years he spent hosting a weekly television show. His career spanned multiple generations and multiple entertainment mediums, from vaudeville to radio to film to television. He created characters that became part of American popular culture. He pioneered comedic techniques that influenced countless performers who came after him. And he demonstrated that wholesome, family-friendly comedy could be just as entertaining and just as artistically valid as edgier material that pushed boundaries. One of Red's most significant contributions was his mastery of pantomime and physical comedy. In an era when most comedians relied heavily on verbal humor, Red could get laughs without saying a word. His ability to convey emotion, tell stories, and create comedy through facial expressions, body language, and physical movements was extraordinary. This skill connected him to the great silent film comedians like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and it gave his comedy a universal quality that transcended language barriers and cultural differences. His character work was equally impressive. Freddie the Freeloader, the lovable hobo, Clem Kadiddlehopper, the country bumpkin, the mean whittle kid, the mischievous child, Sheriff Deadeye, the Western lawman, and numerous others became beloved figures that audiences looked forward to seeing regularly. These weren't one-dimensional caricatures or cheap stereotypes. They were fully realized characters with distinct personalities, mannerisms, and comedic approaches. Red invested them with humanity and heart, making audiences care about them even while laughing at their misadventures. The characters also allowed Red to explore different types of comedy within the structure of his show. Freddie the Freeloader sketches were often more sentimental and emotional, combining humor with genuine pathos. The Mean Whittle Kid segments were pure physical comedy, showcasing Red's gift for slapstick. Sheriff Deadeye allowed for parodies of Western genres and situations. This variety kept the show fresh and appealing to different audience members who might prefer different comedic styles. Beyond the characters and the comedy techniques, Red's greatest legacy might be his commitment to entertainment that the entire family could enjoy together. In an era when much modern comedy has grown increasingly crude, divisive, and age-restricted, Red's approach stands as a reminder that it's possible to be funny without being offensive, to entertain without resorting to shock value, and to create comedy that brings people together rather than divides them. His shows were genuinely wholesome in the best sense of the word, meaning they promoted positive values and human decency while remaining genuinely entertaining. This wholesomeness was never sanctimonious or preachy. Red didn't lecture audiences about morality or try to impose his values on others. He simply created comedy that reflected his own values of kindness, optimism, and respect for human dignity. His characters might get into trouble or face difficult situations, but they always maintained their essential goodness. The comedy came from the situations and the physical gags, not from meanness or mockery of others. Red's influence can be seen in numerous performers who came after him. Comedians like Dick Van Dyke, Tim Conway, Carol Burnett, and many others have acknowledged Red's impact on their own work. His approach to physical comedy influenced generations of performers who understood that the human body could be just as funny as the best-written jokes. His character work showed how a single performer could create an entire gallery of memorable figures that audiences would embrace and remember. The vindication of Red's approach came in the form of audiences continuing to love his work long after network executives had decided he was no longer relevant. The fact that his live performances sold out throughout the 1970s and 80s proved that there was still a substantial audience for the kind of comedy he provided. What is your favorite memory of Red Skelton, and which of his characters or performances meant the most to you over the years? Do you think Red Skelton's wholesome comedy would work on television today? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.